It doesn't exist. There is no pulse rifle in the energy slot that eats flinch for breakfast, has a competitive time to kill, and a competitive range drop-off. It doesn't exist. Unless they make an activity like Onslaught, and then one of the rewards is Elsie's rifle, and Elsie's rifle has Zen Moment, and then on top of that, the base stats are basically an exotic and legendary's clothing, then yeah, we finally have a competitive pulse rifle in the energy slot. Of course, it's too little too late now that they've nerfed both Bubble and Well. I would still argue that you need conditional finality for Well, but Bubble on the other hand, not really, so you're free to run kinetic options, like No Time to Explain. Then they added Red Death, which is another weapon that sort of substitutes Elsie. But you can run Messenger or Cold Denial with something like Duality, and have a very strong loadout, especially if you didn't get lucky with Elsie's rifle. Or you could just do what everyone else is doing, and also use Elsie's rifle. Hey friends, today's video is sort of a response to my video from 7 months ago and a light overview of the weapon sandbox. I already expect just talking about Elsie this much, someone already went to the comment section is like, "You're just finding out about Elsie's, it's a .67 from so far away," and while that's true, that's not the whole story, that's not the big picture. Destiny isn't this game where it's 1v1 primary only with an octagon game mode where there's no cover and you just have to duel your opponent out in the open, Wild Wild West style. The game isn't that. There's other factors to consider like ease of use, which can mean your crit ratio, how much the bullets bend, hipfire accuracy, handling, range, peak shooting potential, airborne bullet registration, swap and ability combos, flinch mitigation, zoom so you have a bigger peripheral that also kind of goes with hipfire, damage boosters for the build, like maybe you're using a 3-shot burst sidearm or an adaptive pulse where it shifts the adaptive pulse to a .6, which can keep up with Elsie's. And then of course it's how your team fits into the picture because it's a team game majority of the time, or if you're playing Rumble, someone else might clean up a kill, so the type of weapon you're using changes how much success you have with your given playstyle. Because if we're just looking at range and time to kill, well then everybody would probably not even be using Elsie, they would be using Fang of your Ute, its 20 zoom, has precision instrument, and has a time to kill of .7. Or you'd be using a box breathing scout. But those have trade-offs with it where when someone rolls up to you, close quarters, you're not exactly going to hit your time to kill easily, whereas a hand cannon or a submachine gun is better suited for the job because especially in close range, they bend bullets harder than anything. Let's just quickly acquaint ourselves with what a hand cannon can do that a pulse rifle really can't, unless you're talking about the BXR Battler, but even then. First thing is it's very accurate from the air, which means you can get the drop on somebody, and average human reaction time is about 200 milliseconds for the gamer in you, and in all likelihood, the hand cannon user is going to float to an off angle that you can't possibly cover between all the different ambiguous heights that they can choose. You gotta react to it, human reaction time goes into there, you have to acquire the target, then you have to track the target depending on if they Icarus dash immediately when they take the shot. Okay, well then what if they're at head level? Well the answer is, if they're near cover, you still can lose it because their time to kill comes out to less than a .67. Don't think of the timer as time to kill, think of it as time exposed to danger. And of course, with networking, yeah, you're probably going to trade about half the time. Yes, pulse rifles can also peak shot to mitigate their burst delay. But in all likelihood, again, if one player plays slightly better than the other one, the hand cannon has an easier time in that specific engagement. Both hand cannons and pulse rifles can very easily combo burst damage with an ability to get a faster time to kill than just using the gun. Team shot applies to this too. You can very easily clean up a hand cannon shot by swapping to your special weapon, and vice versa, and surprise surprise, that time to kill equalizes the .67 that an Elsie's would put out. But of course, considering reaction time, the fact that you don't necessarily have to aim for the head, ambiguous angles, speed coming at you, that's a lot harder to track, and the hand cannon user probably has the advantage there. So now viewer or listener doing their chores or driving to work or whatever, you're probably wondering, well, what's the point of this video? What's better? Is it hand cannons or is it Elsie? And the answer is, both are fantastic, but they're a little bit above the rest, and that's kind of the point of this video. I would say Elsie's, Igneous Hammer, Drang, maybe a box breathing scout, they punch way out of their weight class and are practically exotic weapons, and we've experienced a lot of power creep. And I also think that the weapon sandbox is so close to awesome right now. Just a couple small outliers, and I think we're there. Take a look on screen at the Stars and Shadow footage. with the text on screen giving you the difference in stats from Elsie's to Stars and Shadow. And this is a perfect Stars and Shadow. It's a arrowhead, steady rounds, range masterwork, 3 times stack of surplus, and then Headseeker. And even all that build specific combined, it's only 44 handling better than Elsie, and you can get a similar effect with Elsie by just going Ophidian. Also, I'm not going to pretend like handling isn't important, but with this specific frame of pulse rifle, your playstyle is a lot more stationary, looking to trick somebody into overextending out into the open, so you can snipe them with a .67 and then go about your business. But point is, in majority of cases, Elsie is compatible with significantly more builds than Stars and Shadow, and it's just overall a better gun. The opportunity cost is, while Stars and Shadow doesn't have Zen Moment, it has a worse sight where oftentimes you can lose the enemy, and it has worse recoil because it's not deterministic. So I brought up the Stars and Shadow example to really illustrate how much of a difference Elsie's has on its competition in the energy slot. And then even if they do make something to compete with Elsie's in the energy slot, how much more power crept can it be? I would think it would be better to like universally tone down how easy some of these weapons are so that we can have value in different aspects of different energy pulse rifles. Like we don't even care about the other archetypes because Elsie's practically does everything better right now anyway. Not that it's that far ahead because we have had power creep in the other pulse rifle families. We've been missing a couple options that we haven't really seen since the early seasons of Destiny come back with a new form with new perks, like some of the rapid fires, for example. We just recently got Claws of the Wolf, and it wasn't even close to its predecessors like Horus Least. It was okay, but it's not like Belisarius in the aggressive pulse rifle family like you see on screen right now, the 4-shot burst ones. In the current moment, I've been playing both input devices, and Belisarius feels just slightly harder to use than Elsie, which is just slightly harder to use than a rapid-fire pulse rifle like Horror's Least. So when you take into account both the accessibility floor and the skill ceiling, Elsie's hits the best of everything, so why wouldn't you just use Elsie's over those? And don't even get me started with auto rifles as a whole. The healing frame, it's a very, very strong and potent option that I don't see enough out in the wild, but auto rifles, aside from that healing frame, are pitiful compared to almost everything else in the game. They just don't really do good at anything, and they're also not the best all-arounder. That would go to the BXR Battler and or just Elsie's rifle or a 140 hand cannon. Those are significantly better in majority of situations than auto rifles. We're coming on, the 10th year of Destiny, and they still haven't solved the perfect weapon sandbox yet. They've gotten close in a couple of years, but it always seems like, for example, auto rifles are either running everything at the low skill level, the copper bracket, or they're practically unusable at the high bracket. I do like what they've been doing lately with adding inherent flinch mitigation to certain frames like the 2-shot pulse rifle or the 2-shot hand cannon. They added the healing auto rifle frame. I think more things like that need to happen. Maybe single point sling or radiant dance machines from Destiny 1 with strafe speed for certain unused and unappreciated archetypes of weapons. BXR Battler and Enhanced Hipfire is another example of what could set a frame apart from another in a given family. I'm not going to tell them what to do. I'm just going to say that line of thinking, that type of creativity, I think is a bit healthier for the weapon sandbox than just tuning the stats up and down. I know I'm talking in circles, but I've said everything to get to the greater point, which is that for the devs to be able to evolve the weapon sandbox, I think we need to improve our weapon discourse as a community beyond just thinking of weapons as a 1v1 in the octagon, wild, wild west, no cover on repeat. That's just not it. That's not how the game plays. It's not even close to vanilla Destiny 2. Like, for example, it's easy to look at Final Warning and Fighting Lion in isolation and say, like, they're okay, I guess. But then when you throw them on a Rain of Fire Dawnblade, or just Dawnblade in general for the float, suddenly they become really, really lethal. And at the high skill bracket, it's not like a regular ass Titan is just equipping the gun. No, they're using Lion Rampant with Final Warning, or it's a Dawnblade with Final Warning. You don't just see regular Guardians running around with it, so it's really hard to talk about the strength of the weapon in isolation when the game isn't played in isolation. Also, the Destiny sandbox isn't just the weapon sandbox in isolation. It's also the ability sandbox and the armor sandbox and how all those interact. Like, I would love to see an evolution of the mod system where I'm allowed to sacrifice parts of my build to get even more airborne effectiveness, even more flinch mitigation, even more hipfire accuracy. That's just not an option yet, but having that option would completely shake up the weapon sandbox by proxy, even if not directly for the weapons changing themselves. On this same subject, what spurred this video today was seeing that exotic auto rifle, we'll call it an auto rifle, which definitely seems like that idea stemmed from the crafting. For those who don't know, it's an auto rifle scout hybrid that shoots like explosive rounds in a shot pattern, kind of like a long range shotgun auto rifle. If you haven't seen the weapon, what I just said sounds like I'm making shit up. Trust me, it fits that description. So anyways, exotic auto rifle, I love the crafting. That's one example, one lesson taken from the crafting that we see in game right now. What about the other lessons learned, which was when we made our bullets shoot straight, that felt awesome. Felt the best the game has ever played for me. So what would I have to sacrifice in-game to get that kind of power from my weapons with future weapons? Like maybe I trade radar resolution, I trade inner accuracy, I trade the amount of health my Guardian has beyond the resilience stat. Like I would go crazy just to have some guns that shoot straight and feel awesome to shoot. I feel like this is the direction the game needs to go after a decade, but could just be me. Let me know in the comment section what you all think. I know this video is going to be titled something along Elsie's rifle, power creep, ignorant hammer. I don't know. Thanks for listening to this ramble, to this rant. This has been on my mind for a few months, and I don't know where the future is going to go for the overall sandbox of Destiny 2, but I hope videos like this help everybody think and be better at discourse for telling the doctor why something hurts so that they can better prescribe us medicine.